the Arizona Kindergarten through 3rd grade Academic Standards. In this module, you will learn about the use of standards in instructional planning. You will also learn about standards used in kindergarten through grade 3. This presentation will focus on the Arizona K through 3 Academic Standards. While examining learning standards, we begin to notice a few differences between the early learning standards and the kindergarten through 3rd grade academic standards. The early learning standards were written with children ages birth to 5 in mind. These standards were also written to address the natural environment where children this age can be found. These environmental settings include family homes, family child care settings, other child care centers, preschools, and Head Start classrooms. The academic K through 3 standards for mathematics and English language are more school-based and have an academic focus. The academic standards include standards for mathematics, English language arts, science, social studies, the arts, educational technology, and physical education. This presentation will focus on the English language arts and mathematics standards. There are 3 objectives for this presentation. First, we hope you will get a better understanding of Arizona's academic standards for children in grades kindergarten through 3rd grade. This will include understanding the various sections of the standards and what they tell us. Second, you will learn how to use the standards to better understand the children you work with, as well as to make decisions about appropriate instructional activities. Finally, you will understand the link between the standards and goals for students' academic development. In order to maximize the benefit of this presentation, you will need to have access to the Arizona English Language Arts Standards and the Arizona Mathematics Standards. If you do not already have access to these documents, the following slides will demonstrate how to find them on the Arizona Department of Education website. In our online course materials, you should have seen links to the Arizona Department of Education website Standards page. On the Standards page, there is a link to the English Language Arts Standards as demonstrated by this slide. In order to access the actual standards, you will need to scroll down this web page until you find an area that's labeled Grades K through 5. The example on this slide shows what you are looking for on the Arizona Department of Education website. As you can see, the K through 5 standards are divided into the 4 language arts areas of reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. Each area has a link to a separate PDF file. You will need to open and save each file. Each content area has the standards for grades kindergarten through 5. While we will specifically focus on the K through 3 standards in this course, it is important for you to familiarize yourself with all the standards. This will help you as you plan and assess students throughout their academic career. The online course materials also contain links to the Arizona Mathematics Standards. This page shows a sample of what the Mathematics Standards page looks like on the Arizona Department of Education website. In order to access the actual standards, you will need to scroll down this web page until you find an area labeled By Grade Level. As this slide demonstrates, the Arizona Department of Education has organized the mathematics standards by grade level. Again, please familiarize yourself with the standards at all grade levels, but know that the focus for this course is on the K through 3 learning standards. If you plan on viewing the standards as we go through this presentation, now would be a good time to pause the presentation and access the language arts and mathematics standards. Now let's take a moment to look at how the standards are organized. The English Language Arts Standards are organized into standards, strands, anchor standards, and end-of-the-year expectations. The 4 main strands in the English Language Arts area are reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. Each of these strands is divided into smaller components called anchor standards. As you can see from this slide, the anchor standards span across grade level. Under each of these anchor standards, we will find end-of-the-year expectations, which are also sorted by grade level. In looking at the document, you can see how the students progress from kindergarten to 1st grade within each anchor standard. For example, under text types and purposes, in kindergarten we expect the students to be able to use a combination of drawing, dictating, and writing to create a text, while in 1st grade we expect the students to be able to write text and begin to add structure to their writing. This format is the same for all of the English Language Arts standards. Let's now take a look at the components of each strand of the English Language Arts standards. The reading standards are divided into the three categories of literature, informational text, and foundational skills. The standards for literature and informational text each have the anchor standards of key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas, and range of reading and level of text complexity. These same anchor standards can be found in the reading standards for grades 6 through 12 as well. As we know that students in grades K through 5 are in the process of learning to read, there is an additional category for students in the elementary grades titled Foundational Skills. These skills include print concepts, phonological awareness, phonics and word recognition, and fluency. As you review the standards, you will notice that print concepts and phonological awareness are only found in kindergarten and first grade. It is expected that students are able to master these two areas by the end of first grade. The areas of phonics and word recognition and fluency can be found in all grade levels. While you review all the standards in this presentation, please remember that students are supposed to master these skills at the end of the grade level. Now is a good time to pause this presentation and take a moment to read through the reading standards. If you do not choose to pause the presentation at this time, please be sure to read through the reading standards at the end of the presentation. You will need this information throughout this and future courses. The speaking and listening standards focus on two main areas. The first area is comprehension and collaboration, while the second area is presentation of knowledge and ideas. It is important to note that collaboration is a focus of these standards and can be found as a keyword throughout this section. Another interesting component of this standard is the integration of technology that can be found. Again, take a moment to familiarize yourself with the standards. You can pause the presentation now or review the standards at the end of the presentation. The language standards are organized in a similar fashion. The anchor standards in language include conventions of standard English, knowledge of language, and vocabulary acquisition and use. You may notice that many of the language skills continue throughout the grades. The end of the language standards document contains a chart that helps describe how language skills develop and progress. This chart can help teachers visualize how the skills build upon each other. These skills are also necessary as students develop in the areas of writing and speaking. Be sure to take a moment to view this chart and review the language standards. This can be done now or at the end of the presentation. Now that we have a general idea of the content of the English Language Arts standards, let's take a moment to talk about the purpose of the standards. The standards are not meant to be used as a checklist for teaching. Rather, they are meant to be used to help provide a focus for instruction. It is believed that by using the standards, teachers will provide students with adequate exposure to a range of texts, tasks, and experiences. The anchor standards help connect the expectations to each other across grade levels. The student end-of-the-year expectations should increase in rigor and sophistication each year. One of the main driving forces behind creating the Common Core standards and adopting them in the state of Arizona was to maintain a focus on college and career readiness. Students are expected to meet each year's grade-specific standards as well as retain or further develop skills and understandings mastered in preceding grades. Using the standards should provide clarity for teachers and help them to keep students on track for success. Now let's switch modes and examine the organization of the mathematics standards. The standards are organized by domain, then standard, then clusters. The clusters are a set of skills grouped together to reach a standard. This is similar to the English Language Arts standards, only different names are used to describe each level of the standards. Let's take a closer look. As this slide demonstrates, the mathematics standards are divided into domains. These domains represent large mathematic concepts or areas. You will notice that the same domains can be found across all grade levels. The student expectations are called standards. You will notice a series of numbers and letters which appear before each of the standards. These labels can help you locate a particular standard within the document. The label contains a notation for the grade level, followed by an abbreviation for the domain, and then a number for the standard. In this example, the K stands for kindergarten, the CC stands for counting and cardinality, and the number means it is standard number 1 in counting and cardinality. A feature of the math standards that is different from the English language arts standards is the column titled Mathematical Practices. Mathematical practices are listed throughout the grade level document in the second column to reflect the need to connect the mathematical practices to the mathematical content and instruction. Just like the domains, each grade level has the same mathematical practices. A list of these practices can be found at the end of the grade level documents. Finally, throughout the Mathematics Standards document, examples and explanations are given for each standard. These examples help to make sure that all teachers are interpreting the standards correctly for each grade level. Please take a moment to pause the presentation and review the mathematics standards at this time. So, why do we have mathematics standards for our students? According to the introductory document, the purpose of the mathematics standards is to describe mathematical characteristics and traits educators should seek to develop. Our Arizona standards include skills to help students make sense of problems and persevere in solving them, reason abstractly and quantitatively, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others, model with mathematics, use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, look for and make use of structure, as well as looking for and expressing regularity and repeated reasoning. While much focus is given to the English language arts standards and the mathematics standards, there are additional learning standards that have been adopted by the state of Arizona. These include the arts, educational technology, health education, physical education, science, and social studies. Descriptions of how to view these standards are included in the class website. Now that we have talked about what the standards are, let's take a moment to talk about how educators can use the standards. The standards describe the skills students should obtain by the end of a school year. Teachers should create lessons to develop those skills, remembering many skills are interrelated and develop over time. Then teachers should be constantly monitoring their students' progress towards reaching the standards through multiple assessments that are conducted over time. Other assessments may occur throughout the year as required by state policy. While this testing is important, the assessment that impacts student learning occurs frequently within the classroom setting. Teachers should collect data such as student work samples, observational data, classroom-based tests, and use grading rubrics. Teachers should use this assessment data not only to document student learning, but also to adjust lessons based on the results of these assessments. Curriculum and assessment are directly related to each other, as well as to learning standards. Teachers begin by assessing students' abilities to determine their current levels of functioning. Then teachers plan lessons related to the standards to help students meet end-of-the-year learning expectations as described in the standards documents. While teaching lessons, teachers assess to check for understanding and to document student progress towards skills. Teachers should also go back and assess students' progress in maintaining skills over time. The learning standards should drive all assessment and curricular activities and assessments should be related back to the learning standards. Using the learning standards helps ensure teachers are working towards the same goals for our students. As we think about standards, it is important to remember that learning standards serve as a guide, not a checklist. They are a broad set of skills that reach across grade levels to better prepare students to become productive members of society. It is important that teachers plan learning activities and lessons that are directly related to the standards. And it is also important that teachers then assess the student learning during these lessons to determine their progress towards meeting the standards. Although learning standards are updated frequently, much of the core content remains the same. As you as a teacher become more familiar with the standards, you will have a better understanding of what is expected for each student at each grade level. This will allow you to be more effective as you plan future lessons.